the digital tools for virtual learning session. Our presenter today is Megan Slates, and she's going to share some tools and resources that were valuable to her this past semester in the spring as we were teaching online, and some other resources that have been great in the classroom and out of the classroom. And I think you're all going to gain a lot of great things from her. She's an innovative teacher and will bring a lot of great tools to the table. So I'm going to turn it over to her. If you have questions, feel free to raise your hand or throw them in the chat box. Just so you are aware, we are recording this session so that other members can view it after our virtual conference if it was one that they were interested in. So with that, Megan, I'll turn it over to you.
Wow, thanks so much, Janae. Thanks, everyone. It's great to be here. I wish I could see all of your faces this morning. I snuck away from our officer retreat here for a few minutes to join you. So we decided to kind of get together just with our officers from a distance, of course, and just kind of see everyone and kind of try to plan out what the fall would look like. So I just wanted to share this morning some things that worked for me. I wouldn't call myself an expert or anything like that when it comes to digital tools. And I think it's hard because everyone is in such a different situation and schools require different things. But I pulled together some things that I hope you can use regardless of what platform or LMS your school's using. So I'm going to share my screen, and I thought we could try a little game here. So let's see if this will work. If you have your phone, go ahead and pull your phone out too. And let's see if we can do a Kahoot. And Janae, you let me know if this is not working. So if you have your phone, go ahead and go to www.kahoot.it, and it will prompt you to type in the PIN. You won't have to put your name in. It'll pick a nickname for you. And let's see. All right, I've got someone jumping on here, so maybe this is working.
You're all good. It's working.
Okay. If you don't have another device to use, that's okay here. Just quick, something we can do to kind of see where everyone's at. Give folks a minute to jump on. Lots of players here coming in. Awesome. Well, let's get some music, huh? What's Kahoot without the music? We give one more minute here just to see if there's anyone else that wants to join us in our little Kahoot game. All right, so I have some questions for you guys so that we can see how it went virtually, when we started last spring, and what platforms you were using. So you can think about this as like a little survey, but I use this in my classroom quite a bit as review games. I'm sure some of you do as well. The kids really enjoy playing this game for review, and so typically they would play either on their computer or on their phone. But still got people kind of jumping in and out here. Let me give another minute. Don't want to miss anyone who wants to play with us. All right, and you should see the question on my screen, and then you're gonna select the answer from your screen. So whatever answer you wanna select, you're gonna head and do that from your phone, or if you're on another computer, from your other computer. All right, let's go ahead and give it a try. Okay, so I got 4 questions for us today. All right, so was your school one-to-one during the shutdown? So that means that each student have their own laptop. All right, so did each student have their own laptop? Let's see. All right, so quite a few folks, their schools had laptops for all the kids, or they got laptops for all the kids. So that's awesome. All right, let's go next question here. Oh, well, we'll see who answered first. All right, up next. What platform did you use during the shutdown with your students? So was your school a Google Classroom? Was it Schoology, Canvas? Maybe there's something else. Or maybe you didn't have a set platform, or you didn't use a set platform. Maybe you were just on Drive or email or something like that. All right, so it looks like most folks were on Google Classroom or Schoology or Canvas. Awesome. Okay. Next question. Did your students participate in live online class instruction? So if you had to join live with your students, was your school using Google Meet? Was your school using Zoom? Or no live instruction? All right, that was a pretty quick one. So it looks like Zoom was the preferred platform, or there was no live instruction. Awesome. Leaderboard here, bronze tagger, quick on the replies. All right, and last one here, how comfortable are you with online tech tools? Maybe like this game Kahoot or Nearpod, Quizlet Live is another one my students really like. How are you feeling about online tech tools? Did it go well? Are you somewhat comfortable? All right, so it looks like somewhat comfortable. Got some pros in the audience. Some of us, it just went well, and I would say I'm in that boat. You know, it felt good, but a lot of things I'd change, and some of us are here to learn some things, so that's pretty awesome. Let's see who our winners were. How quick did you answer? Oh, bronze gecko, all right, awesome. All right. Okay, thanks for playing. Let me jump back to my outline here. Okay, so a little bit about the situation that I was presented with. So I kind of called it my challenge, you know. I was to provide 2 hours of digital instruction to my students every week. I was to have 1 hour of office hours every day. We did not have a set meeting time. So I know a lot of you responded you were on Zoom every day, or you were presenting via Google Meet. I did not have a set meeting time with my kids, no live instruction, no live class time. It was whenever the students wanted to do their work. I posted everything on Monday, and it was due on Friday. Throughout the semester, grading kind of changed. I'm sure a lot of us faced that. So our grades ended on a pass-fail based on students completing 70% of my assignments. So if they completed 70% of that work, they received a passing grade for the marking period. And as long as they passed the first marking period, they passed the semester essentially. A pass for an assignment only consisted of 50% of that assignment. So if I gave them 4 questions and they answered 2 of those questions, I was to pass them for that assignment. So just kind of gives you an idea of where I'm coming from with what I ended up finding that worked for my students. I found that when my assignments were super short and the directions were really short, and I tried to keep each assignment at like roughly 20 minutes is what I was estimating. That way, students who took longer were maybe closer to a half an hour, but I tried to keep it around 20 minutes or less. I had a lot of students participate, and I thought that was a really good number. My demographics is, mostly freshman boys, and freshman boys who pretty much took my class to get their hands on engines, and of course that was our final unit, so we did not get to the engines unit. So they were very disappointed going into quarantine knowing that they weren't going to get to essentially get their favorite part of the class. So I was pretty happy with a lot of the work that my students did. In their end of year their end of semester reflection here, I just pulled a couple of things about what they said. So they said in that reflection that they liked that I posted all of the work on Monday and that they had until Friday to complete it every week. And that's how I set up my Google Classroom. So everything was posted Monday at 7 a.m. It was scheduled to go out, and everything was due at Friday. Students liked that they could work at their own pace. So I had a lot of students who were essential workers on the farm, or whatever their jobs were around here. They liked that they could jump on whenever they wanted to go ahead and work. And students also shared that they liked seeing other students do the work. So an example would that be if I posted a question to the Google Classroom page, they liked that they could see the other students' answers. They did not want to work in groups. I tried to approach that. They weren't into that, but they did like seeing what others were saying and commenting. So that's just a little bit about my situation. Personally, I know it varies across the state and what you ended up doing, but hopefully that helps a little bit for you to kind of feel out, where I went with this. So the first thing that I wanted to share with you guys in picking tech tools, I was trying to pick something that really worked for me, first of all, and something that I used a lot throughout the semester, and something that you could implement across your LMSs. So if you were on Schoology or Google Classroom or whatever you were using. And so the first thing that I learned was how to do matching in a pretty quick, easy way. And I got a lot of participation for matching, probably because it's easy to complete from the student perspective. And so I'd have them read a short article or watch a video. And then I tried to make some or majority of my assignments into matching because I thought that, that's where I was getting participation. So I wanted to show you guys that, and maybe some of you are already doing this, you're like, duh. But I wanted to show you kind of how I would walk through that. So let me show you an example here. So I did, we were going through the parts of the carburetor, so that was a matching activity that we did. And so you take your picture, here's kind of the genius part to this, I guess, is that you take your picture, and I would recommend having your arrows all set in your photo, and you set it as the background of the slide. And that way it can't move. So a lot of matching platforms, or if you're trying to rework your worksheet, a lot of that stuff is going to be able to move across your worksheet. And so when students are trying to click and drag, they're able to move a lot of that. So this picture here, even these text boxes that I wanted to kind of start them off with, they're all set and they can't move on the screen. The only thing students can move are the matching pieces that I want them to go ahead and move. So throttle, choke, they can move these text boxes around and place them by those arrows. So let me show you how to do this. So when you're on your slide, all that you do is you add that picture as the background. So I already have my picture of my carburetor saved. So, and you can do this on PowerPoint too, obviously, whatever slides you're working on. So you're just going to choose your image and upload it. So I'm going to go ahead and browse for my picture. And so I had taken a picture of this before. Again, all my arrows are set. And so now students can't edit the background of this slide. It's there. All you have to do is pop in your other text box, and you can go ahead and just pull those around the screen wherever you need to. So I included for you some examples that I used of this. So we did it with carburetor parts. We did it with the ignition system. So it was the same thing. I uploaded my picture. I had all my arrows in there, and students were able to drag the spark plug, you know, and the different parts of that around. Any questions? Janae and I teamed up and we did more into carburetors. So this is a more extensive activity where we were including video with it. So we were videotaping the Clear Carburetor Lab and then having them move around where the fuel moves, where the air moves. But it was the same type of activity. It was a matching activity where they were pulling the arrows. Let's go ahead and open this one up. We had a little review in the front, but they were pulling the arrows. You can see here, they were pulling the arrows in the low pressure around the screen to place them in the proper spots of the carburetor for choke. They would watch it, and then they would go ahead and move these items across the screen. And I think to students, that's a lot easier than writing out. You know, we want them to be writing and reading. But I think in spring, some of us were just in survival mode. I know I was. And so just trying to get them to learn the concept was more important to me than some other things that I would focus on in my classroom. So I use it in my other class as well. So I also teach plant science. And so I found an activity to go with my photosynthesis and cellular respiration. And so I designed it in a charts format. So even if it's not a picture, you could think about it this way and do a chart. And that way they're dragging the concepts into the chart. So they had a reading that went along with this. So they read and then they pulled those items into the chart. I had a second matching chart here where they were pulling into this mind map chart, right? So there's so many different ways that you can use this. The last one, last example I provided here was just using a micrometer and dial caliper. So we tried to work through that. So it incorporated, you know, some fill in the blank with actually reading it, and then matching for the parts of the dial caliper.
Megan, there's two questions that are kind of similar that are in the chat box and the Q&A box.
Awesome.
Holly asks if in the future, if you're not in a pass-fail grading system, would you use these as quizzes, like a timed or a locked screen? And Heather asked the same thing, essentially. How are you evaluating the work that they complete on those slides?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think in the future, I'll definitely still use these in my classroom as check for understandings, or yeah, even quizzes. We don't have the Google locked quizzes mode because our students aren't on Chromebooks, but I would still definitely, I think, be able to implement it as a quiz and just walk around and, you know, maybe make check marks or collect grades. But definitely, I think it could be a great check for understanding. You know, we're done for the day in the shop, sit down for 10 minutes, do this matching. What was the second part of the question, Janae? I think I missed.
Let me read it again here. Yeah, just essentially, how are you evaluating them?
Yeah, oh, great question. So when I was evaluating them when we were all virtual, it was just, did they get 50% of those answers in the correct spots? So if they were pretty close, I would comment back and I would just say, great job, these two were out of place, switch them. Sometimes I would just take a screenshot of the correct answer and send that in a comment box and say, great job, you got a few out of place, here's the correct answer. But again, if they had 50% in the right spots, I was to give them credit for that. So I would just comment or post the correct answer and say, you know, here's what it was. I think too, in a blended format, this would be really easy for teachers to grade. So let's say in the fall, we're 50% at home, 50% at school. You know, that's going to be a challenge on us as teachers to figure out how to grade all of that work. And so this is pretty quick to look over. So once you have the answer key essentially next to this, it's fairly quickly to grade visually. So that could be helpful as well. All right. And so I just included then some other ways that I tried to be interactive with students at home while virtual. So you can change the size of your slide to be lab notebook formatted. If you want it to be, you know, landscape or portrait, you can change the size of that. Oh, I included up here this website for you guys, Slides Mania. They have so many free templates that are pretty awesome. Like this micrometer template, I was able to grab from there and just kind of change a little bit. So if you're looking for, you know, fun templates, that's a good place to look. But you can go ahead and change the size in your page setup and make a custom size to make it look more like a lab notebook. So I was on an NAAE workshop in, I don't know, maybe April, and I learned about this activity here. So I wanted to just walk you through how I did it so that you could see the lab notebook kind of setup. I kept it very, very simple. A lot of my plant science kids were working, and I just they needed something fun to do. They were kind of over photosynthesis and just needed something fun. So what I ended up doing is I mailed a bunch of seeds to their house. So I took the seeds out of their packets and I made my own little seed packets and I lettered them. So it was like A through E. I gave them 5 different samples. So A was a pea seed, B was a watermelon seed, and then I was able to get like some alfalfa seeds out of like a chicken forage mix. And so I made my own little seed packets, and they didn't know the names of any of the seeds, and their job was to plant them in whatever they could find at their house. So any type of recycled container, recycled soil from outside, and they had to plant these seeds and then try to figure out what they were. And so I set this up as a mini lab notebook. And each week we would comment back and forth to one another. They would upload pictures. And the whole goal was by the end to see if you could figure out what types of seeds you had. And they were really into it. I had parents emailing and texting me, asking me for the correct answers because they were trying to help their kids figure it out. And the parents, it was driving them nuts. Like, they can't figure it out. They want to know so bad. I say, I'm not telling you. But they were just, everyone was very into this activity. So I got this from NAAE, but I wanted to show you specifically how I set up their journal lab notebook. You could do this with anything. That was another one I had here. At-home flower dissection. I just thought I'd kind of show you this. This was another interactive activity, so they'd find any flower that they wanted to outside, or if they had something they could use, and they had 2 options. So if they didn't have a flower, they could do it online. So there's an online link as well, but you kind of provide those 2 opportunities, and then they can pick what they want to do. So they just had to upload a picture of it and then summarize all the functions. So another way to use Google Slides. but also be interactive. And last kind of interactive activity I tried to provide for my ag mechanics kids some interactive activities as well. That's pretty difficult because you get to worrying about safety when you're doing this. So one of the first things I had them do, because we were literally starting engine that unit from the beginning, was I had them just go pick a piece of equipment that they had around their house and see if they could pick out the manufacturer and then the engine manufacturer and just look over that piece of equipment. And again, if they didn't have one, I provided them links to pick a new piece of equipment out. So quick way to use Google Slides. They're looking at something at their house and then they're kind of assessing that piece and learning what we want to be learning in class. So those are the big concepts I wanted to share out. I also used Google Jamboard. I included how we use Jamboard here. Jamboard is great, but you do need to realize that all the students can edit each other's sticky notes. So it's very similar to Padlet. I wanted to keep my students as much on Google as possible just so we could keep everything in one spot. So I went for it and used Jamboard, and the kids were great with it. They didn't delete anyone's sticky notes or change anything. But you could use Padlet if you have as another option for that. Google Forms and Google Sites are other great opportunities. I included my Google form down here. I did a lot of reflection and check-in with my students. So, you know, how are we doing? Are you liking how I'm posting assignments? Are you finding things? How much time are you spending on them was another question I asked. And that allowed me to change what I was doing as I was going. So I think I posted the reflection about 3 weeks in to our instruction. And then I kind of tweaked from there. So I would, you know, always reflect and see how it's going. Nearpod is great. I know there was a workshop on Nearpod yesterday. I used that as well. So I linked one that I did on at the beginning of our engines unit. Again, we were going through just general equipment, what's a small gas engine, you know, keeping things very simple to start out with. Quizzes and Edpuzzle I started to play around with through quarantine. These are great because they give reports. Students don't have to make accounts. Oh, and if you're in something like animal science, I realized, and ag mechanics, there's a lot of things already created. So that platform, I found that a lot of other teachers are using it because there's already quizzes. You can just pull some of the things that they're already using. Yeah, so those are some of the tools I used. I reflected weekly. The other thing I found that really helped me was I was doing a weekly attendance question. So I just, you know, showed an example of what that looked like. Each week I would just kind of say, how are you? And I would ask a funny question, mostly would you rather questions, and they would pick an answer. And I think they liked that they could see what other students were picking. So they could see, just go to this real quick, they could see, you know, what other students picked for the answer to the would you rather question. And it sparked other conversation, though, is why I included it here. So if a student was really struggling, there's like private comments on Google Classroom and live comments on Google Classroom. A lot of them would private comment and be like, hey, I picked it, I'm doing good, or I picked this answer, but, you know, this week's not going so well, or, you know, whatever they wanted to tell me. That was a place where they could put that. I did not have a lot of students, you know, reach out through my office hours because it kind of seemed like they were online at different times. A lot of them, I think, rather wanted to comment there or just comment in my email, send an email. So just giving your students options and ways to reach out to you and to reflect on what you're doing also was really helpful for me.
Again, we have a question in the Q&A box about how you adapted for students with IEPs.
Mm. Yeah, that's a great question. I think the matching really helped them, which was another reason I went to that, is because there's their word bank. So that really helped. For one student, I would pull the reading and highlight the reading, and that I think helped even more with the matching because they weren't, writing long things. I think mostly I just worked really closely with parents and their IEP teachers. I know their IEP teachers were kind of sitting online with them a lot. And so that was something else that was happening that I maybe wasn't as involved in. But I allowed those IEP teachers into my Google Classrooms as students. They wanted to be in as students instead of teachers, so they weren't getting all the notifications. So they joined my classroom as a student, and then they were seeing all the activities posted to be able to read the directions themselves. Yeah. Any other questions? Or brainstorms? Anything else come to mind that you want to share out?
Go ahead, Heather. I saw you had your hand up.
Hey, Megan, I don't know how many other folks in this group are using Schoology, but your Google Slides activity, Schoology will allow you to make an assignment that is almost identical to that, and it will do all of the grading for you. So much like you just said, you can upload a picture and then you can create matching boxes and give it choices, and then it will allow you to match things and it will grade it for you.
Oh, that's awesome. That's really good to know that Schoology has that capability.
I think there's two different things. You can't, it's assignment or assessment, and for the life of me, I can't remember which it is. Assessments are like building tests, and that's not the one I don't think you want. I think it's assignments or whatever. But
Okay.
there's a way to do it with one of the two.
Is that something after you create it then that you can copy to multiple classes?
Yes, you can save it to your resources folder, and then you can use that same assignment to copy it to all of your classes. We found in Schoology also that we were able to link classes. So if I had multiple sections of the same class, I could link those two classes together. Not that the grade books were together, they weren't, but the materials were all together. So I could make one weekly assignment folder and everybody had the same weekly assignment.
That's awesome. Did you find that your students were really receptive to matching?
I found that in general, my students were more receptive to activities that were interactive like that.
Mm-hmm.
Although that was my ag students, my upperclassmen who were like level 2 environmental science kids. Believe it or not, plug and chug was their favorite thing. I had the best response on things that were like, read this article and answer these 10 questions.
Yeah.
And that just blew my mind. But the ag kids that were very active and hands-on, they really appreciated stuff like that.
Yeah. No, that's good to know. I wonder if because they were upperclassmen, they were just already in tune to doing that.
They just wanted to get it done. Like, give me straightforward. I don't want to have to play games or think about it. I just want to get it done. You know?
Yep. Yeah, definitely. No, that's great to know. Thank you for sharing.
Some more questions coming up in the Q&A box. Sarah Beth asks, what is quizzes? And do you want me to go through all of them, or do you want to answer them one at a
time? Well, let me keep track of time here. How many do we have?
Sorry, I was reading them. Jenna asked about what are some things you did with your FFA chapter during quarantine. Lindsay, I'm going to have you clarify what you were asking Heather about. She wanted to know what something was called that Heather was discussing. And then Diana was asking about uploading the slides to Nearpod. That way you can use it with other information.
Yeah, great. Let me start with Diana's question because that's a really simple answer. My school blocked third-party uploads from Slides Deck to Nearpod, unfortunately. I think they were really concerned about just teachers and third-party programs that haven't been vetted by them for whatever reason. I did ask for the Slides Deck Nearpod collaboration, and I got turned down on that one, unfortunately, but maybe one day. Okay, quizzes. It's another quiz generator. Kids can play on their own. So I had 12 questions here about carburetors. They ran through the questions. What I liked about this, I don't know if it's going to play music or something here if I start it, but here, we'll just open it up as flashcards. What I like about this is once you got the question wrong, it would bring that question up closer to the end. So it knows what question you're getting right and wrong, and it would pull them back in. So these are just going to look like flashcards now, I guess. It's just a game that has you answer the questions. And I included a screenshot here of what the report as well, because it gives you, I always look for games that tell you how your students did, because some platforms, won't give you that. So you get to see when they played, if they answered all the questions, and what accuracy they got, so that was good. I did find a lot on engines already, a lot of questions related to engines on quizzes already created. And I want to say there were some animal science things as well, depending on topics. So that's a quick overview there. I think you might be able to steal my quiz if you click that link here for the game. I think it will allow you to copy that to your account too if you make one. But the kids don't have to make accounts. They just type their name in and then play. So.
The only other question that's still out there, aside from Lindsay, who wanted Heather to clarify something, was Jenna's about FFA during quarantine. Maybe you want to talk about how you're structuring your officer retreat here towards the end. We have about 3 minutes left together.
Yeah, sure. That sounds great. Through quarantine, we actually still continue to have weekly officer meetings, which I was kind of shocked at our participation. It was fairly decent for 7 a.m. on Wednesday mornings. So we continue to meet with our officers. Our officers did a couple things aside from moving our banquet all online. They also decided to write every ag student a letter just saying, we hope you're doing well. You can reach out to me if you need a friend or you need help with class. So we actually spent a lot of time breaking up our whole class list, assigning officers, getting them stamps and envelopes, and they wrote every student a letter. So I thought that was really great that our students wanted to do that. Right now, we did pull them together in person with social distancing just to do a little officer retreat. Our officers just really wanted to get together. They're a brand new team, so our team switches over in March. So they had just switched over when all this happened. So they knew their position and what they had received, but they didn't get to do anything else. So they really, really were wanting to get together. So we said, okay, well, as long as it's outside, and as long as everyone, promises to keep their social distancing, and our school said, if everyone's got masks on, if everyone has their temperature checked every day, we're essentially following the same guidelines as athletes. So that's how we're able to do that, is through the same guidelines our athletes are following right now. So we're just meeting together for a couple of days just to kind of talk and brainstorm and see what we want to do this next year. So I hope that answers your question. But those were our two big focuses, was our online banquet. We ended up doing a slow release every day on Instagram throughout the month of May. So an online banquet, and then they wrote each student a letter.
Megan, Diana asked if you switch officers in March during your banquet.
Yeah, so our officers interview typically either during National FFA Week or right after that. They interview then in front of a panel, and then we announce them typically right before our FFA banquet. So when they go into the banquet, they know which position they're taking, so they know where to stand. So they flip over in March.
If there's any other questions for Megan, feel free to drop them in the chat or the Q&A box. In the meantime, we're wrapping up here in this session, and next on the agenda is a little break to eat some more conference in a box snacks, or watch the virtual award ceremony if you want to. But we will be prepping for the business meeting, which will come next. It's going to be the fastest business meeting you'll ever see, and that will be in the main meeting room link, which is on the agenda. And I have gone into the agenda and added the shared Google Drive folder link that I put in the chat box, so you can access Megan's resources and other session resources, as well as the business meeting agenda and packet that you would normally receive if we were in person. So you may want to have that up on your computer so you can follow along. I know Darla will have some resources on the screen for you, but unless you have other questions for Megan, you can head back to the main meeting room. And thanks for joining, Megan. You did a great job.
Oh, thanks everybody. I really hope you could take something from this, and good luck this fall.